Welcome back to the Red Truck Woodshop. If you'd like to see how I built this barn, stick around, I'll show you. So I'll give you a quick overview of the barn here. Got two faux barn doors and latch to latch them. Got the bigger barn doors and some stalls. We got 4 stalls here. This was designed for toy horses that are approximately 9 inches tall and 3 inches or so wide. And so got nice little stall doors there. And if you look at it from the side, has a nice little faux window here and a handle for picking it up and moving it. So that's our barn.
I started off with 1x8 pine boards that I cut to length, and after I cut them to length, I took them over to my planer and planed them down to 1/2 inch thick. Then I cut them to width on my table saw. And now it's time to glue the boards together to make the pieces for the sides, bottom, and back and front. I got these clamps, and they're nice clamps, but at the same time they're a little bit difficult to put on. They apply pressure in all 4 directions, top, bottom, front, back, as you glue the boards together, which is really nice.
To get you through the stormy weather, to do whatever you feel.
Here I'm cutting the front and back pieces of the barn to the classic barn shape. With the front of the barn cut to shape, it's time to cut it into 2 pieces for the doors.
Okay, well, I started assembling the barn and I turned it and I noticed, oh no, I've split the wood right along there. So I'm gonna try and do the glue and sawdust and see if that'll clean that up and hopefully keep it from propagating. Alright, so we have a slight variation in the thickness of the base. So my little posts here needed to be numbered so that each one fit into the correct spot. So you can see here I put a number there so it fits in just right. So that's how I'm going to know which one goes where. Okay, so here's the door for the stall, and this is a sample door that I made. I need to make a couple measurement adjustments, but this is a sample door, and just gonna swing like that. I've got a rod that goes down through a groove that I cut behind this board, and I'll show you how that is. I got a pin, you just pull the pin out, and you can see there's holes in there and a groove in there. And so, yep, you just round off this edge so it doesn't hit the wall. But otherwise, you get a nice groove through there. The wire goes through. So, it's time to make some more doors for the stalls.
Here I'm cutting the dado for the hinge pin. I want to get some hold downs for my sled so that I don't have to have my fingers inside like you see here. Make it a little bit safer. I apologize for the blurry picture here. This is what happens when you set your camera on your work table.
So I'm working on the roof of the barn, and I wanted to get the angles just right. So I cut this scrap piece to set up my angles so that I could have the long side and do only miter on the top piece. This side piece would just be straight square corners. So you can see this piece that I've made. And I've set up my table saw to cut the angles. So we're going to go ahead and cut the real piece now because everything fits just right.
After the roof pieces were cut, I started making the handle from some 3/4 inch pine. I'm bending a 90-degree twist into this aluminum to connect the handle to the divider on the hayloft. Later you'll see why the twist is there.
Right there. No, I broke it. That's not what I wanted. Well, as you saw, broke the handle here. You can see right in here the crack. And so I'm going to try to attempt to repair that. Put a little glue in the crack. I got this clamped on here so that I can use it to clamp that together when I'm done. So let's take a fine piece of wood here, some glue, and see what we can work into that gap without completely destroying it. This is where a syringe would come in very handy. Now I think we got a good amount in there. Let's clamp it. And hopefully it'll come back just fine. Okay, got half the roof on, got the handle on. I managed to save the handle, so I did not have to make a new one. So now I'm gonna put on the other half the roof. Due to minor warpage of the roof boards, I ended up with cracks right here along the ridge. I'm gonna try and do the sawdust and glue trick. See if we can get these things fixed up. Get those joints looking just a little bit tighter. I got the joints sealed and sanded, and it turned out pretty good. Not excellent, but pretty good. So we got a nice rustic barn. Also added that piece there, that arch piece there at the front to help solidify, secure the roof. So now we're on to adding the doors to the front. I bought these hinges to do the doors, and it came with screws. And looked at the screws and I thought, they look a little long. So I held them up, put the screw through the hinge, held it up, and said, oh no, those are gonna poke through my wood just barely. You can see that right there. And so I'm going to take a little time here to file off the ends of the screws so they don't poke through my wood. Okay, I got the screws filed down and the doors mounted, and the hinges look good. Did not poke through on the screws. So next thing we need to do to this is we need to make it look a little bit more like a barn. I'm going to cut some thin strips to put on the side here to make it look like a window, and on the front here to make it look like doors, and a window over on this other side. So that's the next step. So the strips of wood that I'm going to be making the doors and windows out of for this barn are going to be made from this piece of cedar. Going to cut it into thin strips on my table saw. Now unfortunately, I don't have a really thin cutting for my table saw. I saw on YouTube somebody has a real neat idea for a thin strip jig. I have to get one of those. But until then, I'm going to cut these into about a 5/16 inch thick board, and then I'm going to take it over to my planer and I'll plane it down to about 1/8 of an inch thick. That's about as thin as I can get with that. Alright, so I'm just going to eyeball this one.